Bucks suffer defeat for the first time this season, but a lot of positive takeaways. We get into the recap next on Locked On Bucks.
You are Locked On Bucks, your daily Milwaukee Bucks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Bucks. I'm Justin Garcia, joined by Frank Madden. We thank you for making this your first listen of the day each and every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. So a loss for the first time this season, but as we said at the top, a lot of positive takeaways, Frank. I suppose that was my take on it. I don't want to speak for you, but let's just start with, we'll get to Giannis's insane stat line again, some of the stuff we saw from other guys, but earlier in the day, when we started to see the injury report updates, to go into a game without Kevin Porter Jr., then without Karl-Anthony, to a lesser extent Kyle Kuzma, this felt like in years past, this is one that, like, man, this one's going to get away from you quickly. And I think even in the late second quarter, early third, when the Cavs were starting to build that lead, and eventually when it got to 18, I know there's no way to like prove or quantify this, but it just feels like a game the Bucks would lose by 25 in years past.
Yeah, I mean, look, and Cleveland's obviously not at full strength either right now. They've got some key absences, notably Darius Garland and Max Strus. So, a couple of days ago, I definitely looked at this, and we talked about it on the Friday pod, I guess, said like, hey, actually kind of a good time to be catching Cleveland. I think, it's one thing to be without Kevin Porter Jr. It's another to be without KPJ and Karl-Anthony, Cole being the late scratch, as you referenced, because of an illness. So hopefully that's not, something that will limit him, moving forward. Hopefully that was like a one game sort of thing, fingers crossed. And we'll see, how quickly KPJ might come back as well. My guess is he's probably misses another game or two, but he's not like a long-term injury, it seems. So, kind of a game again. Can you come in? You say like, are they going to be able to like score enough points given the lack of ball handling and all that? I mean, we saw first half Mark Sears today, which is probably not a leading sign that you're going to have a great offensive night when you have to see Mark Sears early. But I thought, again, like as you mentioned, it felt like they just kind of didn't have the firepower, and to go down by as many as they did in the third quarter and then fight back and, be right there in it late. I think there's certainly, as you said, some positives to be had from that. And and of course, just Giannis continuing to just fight through all the noise, and, obviously the burden on him to make plays and really drive the offense was even higher tonight than it was in game one, and you remember that wasn't in game two. And, he responded again, right, going up against a Cleveland team that is not lacking in big men to challenge him at the rim. Jarrett Allen and, Evan Mobley, literally a defensive player of the year, guarding him directly for a lot of the night. So again, what do you say about Giannis? That we haven't said before. He was tremendous, 9 assists, a couple big blocks, 30 and only 33 minutes. So, they didn't have to ride him as heavily as they did in the other game on Friday when he played 38 minutes. Again, you just sort of, I think, say really competitive effort. They could have folded. They did not. They kept going. And, again, I hate to play the moral victories or good loss sort of card, because I don't ever really like to think about that. Like the Bucks are not like bad enough to kind of be like that. But in the grand scheme of like, it's 82 games and you can't beat yourself up after every one. This is one I look at and say like, you know what? This was always going to be a tough win, and, you lose, but you, I think, are still at 2-1, feeling pretty good about this team.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about it on the radio post game too, same sentiments of like, well, I mean, for a team with Giannis, you're not going to take away moral victories, but like you feel good coming out of this loss. Like, yeah, there's some good things that we saw here. I'm curious how Doc will answer it. And he was asked, I think Eric brought it up too, and same thing of like, I don't want to say it's a moral victory, but how do you feel? And Doc quickly just said, like, yeah, I liked a lot of what I saw, and we feel good about how competitive this team was in this game here. Speaking of Giannis and his dominance that we've seen, the Raptors one was like, I don't remember if we touched on this, but it was, and his teammates said the same thing too, like a quiet, oh yeah, wow, Giannis had 37 points. Like, wow, those really started to add up, I guess. This one, you could feel his impact and effect all throughout the game, obviously with the pieces that were out and what they needed to ask of him. But in some ways, that almost makes it more impressive, and especially on both ends of the floor, that the efficiency that he was able to score with going up against those two big men without really a secondary guy alongside him in terms of a creator is the biggest takeaway for me. And I mean, 3 games, but Giannis's per 36 is like 40 points a game right now.
Yeah. And you look at his shot chart. So Justin, he's 0 for 3 on mid-rangers in 3 games,
but
he's 4 for 6 on 3. And
he's made 3 in a row.
Yeah. And he is averaging 12 field goals made at the rim per game. So I can't remember what he averaged. I think his total makes per game last year, his total field goal makes per game was like 11 or something like that.
I think so.
Something on that order. So for him to be averaging, I think he's 36 of 46 or something like that at the rim. He's shooting 78%, which, is like just typical Giannis fare. Yeah. He averaged 11.8 field goals made per game in 34 minutes per game last year. So he is averaging that, slightly more than that, just at the rim right now. And of course, like, okay, yeah, the Wizards don't have, maybe a lot to defend with.
But that was the team he struggled with the most.
But Toronto, yeah, I know. But like Toronto and Cleveland, they certainly brought a level of physicality and challenged him. And yeah, I mean, it's funny because it was interesting last year because the narrative about Giannis adding the mid-ranger and being really efficient for mid-range, I saw it, like you saw it every once in a while, then someone would try to then make the leap of like, oh, well, he's not attacking the paint. He's now settling to this new phase of his career. He's not like, as physically dominant. It's like, no. His rim field goal, like his share of shots at the rim are higher than they have been since like his first MVP season. He had like the most dunks he had in a season since I think that first MVP season. So he is just, his ability to work his way, attack, the ball handling, which is like probably to me the most underrated thing about his game. Like he is the greatest ball handling big man in the history of sport. And nobody ever talks about that. It's just completely taken for granted that he's able to just attack, dribble up and down the floor, go end to end, every game, do things that like nobody does. It's just remarkable. And again, it's so easy to take for granted. I think certainly people outside Milwaukee take it for granted. We always try to check ourselves that we don't take it for granted. Because a lot of times when, he puts up monster stat lines, like the Toronto game, it's like, then we don't talk about him until like, the 5th guy on the list, just because he's the metronome. He's the guy that you just always know is going to be there. And it's always the other guys who kind of, determine the winning and losing in a way. So yeah, I mean, again, on nights like this, you got to acknowledge it. And, yeah, I mean, it has been interesting just how it's I was sort of thinking about it, because the thing about the mid-range stuff is not so much even just the fact that he hasn't made a shot, but just one attempt per game is so few. And it feels like there have been times where it looks like he's maybe looked to try to get into like pull up to a rhythm mid-ranger, but like tonight the Cavs are kind of playing him for that. And so we'll be interesting to see over the course of the season. Most teams obviously would rather concede the mid-ranger than, give him an angle to try to drive to the basket. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, again, like this is a tiny sample. I'm sure that kind of part of his game will come back, but will he shoot as ridiculously well this year as he did last year from mid-range? Like that's certainly not something you can take for granted. And if he doesn't shoot as high a percentage? Will he feel as comfortable? Will he take as many shots in that way? Who knows, right? Maybe he will take more threes, because certainly he alluded to that. I was talking with Eric about this, just texting with him, and he referenced this after media day. He was like, Giannis sounded like maybe he will shoot threes this year a little bit more. And not that we have a overwhelming sample. 6 in 3 games is not exactly high volume, but he's obviously not afraid to shoot them. And hey, I will never be sad about seeing Giannis threes go down, right? He's not taking tons of them. He's just making them when he's taking them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you have a number in mind. It obviously depends on how many are the Bucks as a whole getting, but Camille and I talked about it the other day too. If Giannis ends up taking 2, right now it's 2, but
2,
yeah, 2, 3 threes a game, fine. If they're, I'm assuming I trust him enough to know they're in rhythm threes, or when he's feeling it, and it's a heat check 3. So fine, if you're putting up 3 a game, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and again, in this offense, again, so much of it is just going to come up down to his discretion, right? I mean, it's pretty much, to be honest, what do you want to do, right? And I think you just, on some level, at this point, I think he's earned the artistic license to know when he can take one, and when he should maybe show some discretion with it. So the fact that he's making a high percentage of relatively few, that's probably the best case scenario in many ways, because you don't want him taking a ton of them. But when he's I think shown some good discretion with it. So yeah, we'll see. But overall, interesting talking about threes. Tonight. Talking the first 2 games, the Raptors and Wizards both shot the ball very well from 3. The Cavs tonight didn't shoot it great. They're 12 out of 40. So this is one of those games where you look at it and you say they left you a little bit of room here. But the Bucks were not great, especially in the sense of just volume. I think what they took 33, I want to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you're kind of looking at it they did basically nothing in transition tonight. They did nothing in transition in Toronto. And I think some of that certainly comes down to, progressively getting, having fewer and fewer ball handlers that could actually move the ball up the floor. I think the turnovers were again a problem tonight.
Yeah.
Second straight game, obviously Toronto is really a first half problem tonight. Just Bobby Portis trying to throw, Bobby trying to throw 40-foot outlet passes, and just stuff that again, it just isn't. It's just you're not gonna win a game making some of these decisions. And so I think especially given the personnel and the firepower offensively, they have to take care of the ball, right? I mean, I think that's kind of goes without saying. And it's the 33 attempts, I think, as we were saying, right, I think want to see them be able to get 40 good 3-point attempts off per night, probably. And tonight, obviously, it was just a little harder. Some of it's because Giannis is getting to the rim, but the offensive efficiency was 110, which is not good.
Not good. Yeah,
below average. So yeah, the offense, I think, let them down tonight. The defense wasn't great, but it was solid. Especially against this Cleveland team. I think it gave them a chance to win, and obviously they just couldn't pay it off. Couldn't hit shots, sort of in big moments.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not completely unsurprising that your offense would struggle this much, given what we just laid out. And it's kind of important to have initiators and ball handlers besides Giannis, and the 3-point volume too. I mean, they only took 79 shots total all game. Part of that was turnovers, and part of it was free throws, and Giannis getting to the rim as well. So the shame of it is, and again, Cleveland wasn't full strength, but you really would like to see proof of concept against the Cavs and against the Knicks, since those are the 2 teams that everybody assumes these are the top 2 teams in the East. So this different version of the Bucks, let's see how it stacks up against 2 teams you struggled mightily against last year. And maybe we'll see that against one of those 2 teams in the New York Knicks. So Giannis, tremendous, goes without saying. Once again, he's been on an absolute tear to start the season. There's one other name that really made an impact as well. So we'll get your thoughts, Frank, on Ryan Rollins and a few other guys that stood out a little bit as well, coming up after this on Locked On Bucks. Well, let's be honest, most of us can't even name all of our financial accounts, let alone what they're worth. Between 401ks, savings, and investments, it's easy to lose track, and that leaves money on the table. That's why you need to start using Monarch, an all in one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy to use interface on your laptop or phone. They can help you organize accounts, track your spending, and get a better handle on your investments without ever opening a spreadsheet. And you can review everything with your partner or even a financial planner, see your shared goals, make better financial decisions together. Their visual dashboards and smart tools make it so much easier to understand where your money's going and how to make it work harder for you. Don't let financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code Locked On NBA at monarch.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarch.com, code Locked On NBA for half off your first year. Basketball season's officially here, and nothing beats being in the arena for those opening games. But getting tickets can be a total headache between waiting in queues, surprise fees, and prices that jump right before checkout. It's easy to get frustrated when all you want to do is cheer on your team. That's where Game Time comes in, the app that gives fans the advantage. It's your ultimate hack for scoring amazing NBA tickets fast, easy, and stress-free. You can use Game Time to get into the arena next week. 3 games in Milwaukee next week. Steph Curry and the Warriors coming to town. Sacramento Kings, and that big one with the New York Knicks. Can find seats in minutes. You see what you pay immediately. No hidden fees at checkout. And if you've never been to Fiserv Forum or any stadium or arena for that matter, you can see exactly what the view will be within the app before you buy the tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying NBA tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On NBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. That's code Locked On NBA for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. So the other guy that I think will get a fair share of the attention in this one, Frank, is Ryan Rollins, who finished with 14 points, 8 assists, 2. He just obviously defensively, we've talked about the value and the impact that he has already started to make. I think he's already the best on-ball defender, and it's not even close that this group has. But he's clearly getting more comfortable and more confident in his offensive game. And really what he excels at, which this team is going to need, is just the ability to get to the rim and kind of use his body to shield the defender. And he's gotten better at finishing at the rim. That I just, Camille and I have both been accused of being way too high on Ryan Rollins, but he seems like at the end of the season, if you're asking who's the guy that really broke out for this group, it's going to end up being him because he's playing both ends of the floor.
Yeah, another 3 steals tonight. He's been kind of that ball hawking guy. He was leading the league in deflections through the first couple of games. I don't know how many he had tonight, but another 3 steals. And, he just always finds a way to the ball. Even that play where he looked like he was going to lose it.
Yeah. And then he turns it into a dunk.
And then he grabs it and tomahawk dunks it, from the half court. It's interesting. I saw the comment the other day about, it was kind of a national person. I can't remember what it was, but someone tweeted a comment that oh, I think this may be the most athletic team the Bucks have had with Giannis. That. And, I'm not even going to try to think back to the pre-Bud days, but I guess if you were saying during the Bud era specifically, right? I mean, the fact that Chris was always one of your best players, right? Chris is many things, but he's not athletic. And Brook Lopez, again, not athletic explosive, right? Really doesn't have to be he can dunk and block shots and is he athletic? No. But yeah, in terms of athleticism, Drew Holiday was always interesting because Drew's extremely strong, but not again, just a pure, explosive, run and jump guy. And, probably Eric Bledsoe's the guy, I think of as being a truly like more explosive type guy. Although it seemed like even in his tenure with the Bucks, you know, he went from like dunking a bit in like his first year or two to like maybe being the layup guy, you know, on the fast break. So he was not quite the nuclear guy that he was, you know, during his like early kind of Clipper days. But yeah, I mean, you watch like Rollins making plays, like the play made on Scotty Barnes dunking and then screaming into the stanchion.
Yeah.
Love that on Friday. And tonight, you know, that dunk he had, and just, you know, his ability to get to the basket and with either hand, I think is probably the other important piece with him. He's got a very good left hand finishing. I think the hard part for Ryan, and I've mentioned it, right? Like he's not like a real point guard. You know, he's more of like a shooting guard.
He's a George Hill.
Yeah. Who's like a good ball handler. And so he can, you know, like if you give him the ball long enough, like a lot of times he'll find a crease and get all the way to the basket. But, you know, the hard part is like, especially with a guy like Giannis, like how do you kind of like make decisions about, you know, dribble pass shoots type stuff? Like with a guy like Giannis, how much do you dribble before you kind of move the ball and get into different actions? I mean, that's the art of doing this. And I think for him, like, you know, it will pay off with athletic finishes around the basket a bit. And I think, was it in this game that we saw, was his 1-3 in this game like kind of a pull-up three? He had either Friday or this game. He
created
like
the space with the step back.
Yeah. I mean, that's to me is kind of like probably the biggest thing that if he added that to his game, and you could say that really about any of the Bucks point guards, right? Like Karl-Anthony is probably the guy that will do it the most often, but inconsistently. KPJ has gone away from really taking off the dribble threes, which isn't necessarily all bad, because I think he's kind of like realizing it's like not a very high percentage shot. But yeah, like if any of those guys can really get more comfortable doing that and being more of that pull up threat off the dribble, that's what kind of like, you know, unlocks them from being like, you know, role playing starter. Like, you'd rather have them as the 6-man types to guys that like, oh, this guy's actually like, you know, like has upside that maybe, you know, we didn't expect, right? I think with Rollins, like, you know, if we want to put on the kind of the glass half full, you know, certainly George Hill or, you know, even Derek White with just like some of the defensive playmaking, like the shot blocking, which is a weird thing to profile like a point guard for, or like a kind of combo guard for. But like Rollins and Derek White are both like, I mean, Derek White averages a block a game as a point guard, which like basically leads the league in blocks as point guard every year. And we've seen Ryan like also be a guy that like just like gets chased down blocks or like blocks at the rim in the half court, which is just very unusual for a player of that size. So yeah, I mean, he doesn't have to become a number one option. He doesn't have to become a 20 point per game scorer. But if, you know, I think we've assumed KPJ, because he's done it at the NBA level, even Karl-Anthony's second year, I think scored 16 a game and averaged about 6 assists a game. I think if any of those guys can, you know, get to that sort of consistency, and obviously a lot of it comes down to who plays the most, but and KPJ will have kind of first crack, you know, that guy obviously becomes extremely important and valuable. And, you know, maybe obviously probably ends up being more of a, you know, point guard by committee type thing. But, you know, I think any of those guys on any given night, you know, I think are liable to play really well. And obviously with Ryan, it's, you know, a two-way thing in particular. And, you know, again, there were a couple plays where like Donovan Mitchell kind of caught him flat-footed, but I don't know. It felt like Donovan Mitchell played well. He made some big plays, like getting in the middle of the zone and hitting like mid-rangers. But like, look at the box score. It's like 9 for 20, 24 points, 5 turnovers. I mean, you'll take that any night defending a guy like Donovan Mitchell. So again, they just kind of, you know, lost it on the margins tonight, especially with the turnovers.
Yeah. I mean, that's a tough part in that, without Darius Garland, you had Mitchell and Mobley go combine 14 of 34 or 33, and Hold'em. I mean, they're still both over 20 points, but 47 points between those two. Like the efficiency wise, you look like, well, this is our chance to offset the absence of Darius Garland and Max Strus too. But it comes in a night where you basically don't have any point guards. We did see Mark Sears briefly for a couple of stretches. You know, I think there's definitely something there that you can continue to develop, but it just seemed like the moment was a little too big for his debut to be thrown out there of an aggressive an aggressive Cavs team too that knew, let's just pressure the Bucks because they don't have any other point guards. And I think you could see that in the minutes that Mark Sears was thrown out there, especially with his size.
Yeah, I mean, I think he turned it over in one of his first possessions, and then there was a play, it was second half, where I think Giannis was setting a screen kind of like on the right wing, and Sears was kind of coming middle. And it was one of those plays, it was kind of an empty type play. And, if Mark has a couple games under his belt, I think he would have seen Giannis rolling down the right side. And he got, Mark kind of got the corner turned and got caught a little bit in between, ended up putting up a little floating shot. Giannis rebounded and put it in, but like it probably should have been an alley-oop dunk to Giannis, which is one of those plays that, again, hopefully he kind of figures out, he's still looking for his first basket, I think is, in an official game. But yeah, he had a couple moments already, hit that one late kind of dagger shot in the preseason. I mean, the guy knows how to get buckets. That's what he did at Alabama. Is he ultimately going to be too small?
Ohio.
There you go. Is he going to be too small, to do it consistently in the NBA? Of course, that's why he wasn't drafted. But I mean, let's just say we'd all be happy if, we were mainly seeing highlights of Mark Sears in Oshkosh and not having to rely on him like play real minutes in NBA games, right? At least not right now. So hopefully, they at least get Karl-Anthony back for the next game. We'll see with KPJ, and then Mark Sears won't be forced into real rotation minutes sooner than he might be ready for.
A couple other guys we saw briefly for a couple of them, and another guy that we've seen more than briefly that I think may be pretty polarizing. So we'll get into that discussion and wrap things up next. NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So we also saw Jericho Sims for the first time this season, I believe, right? That was his first time
I think
NBA.
Didn't he play late in the Wizards game? I thought
he got 2 minutes in the Wizards game. Yeah, you're right. But we saw in non-garbage time.
Rotation Jericho Sims. Yeah.
Rotation Jericho Sims, rotation Andre Jackson Jr. as well, which you kind of assume that was kind of the under the radar forgotten. Like, well, yeah, I would assume given your current status of backcourt guys and guards, Andre Jackson Jr. is probably going to play too. I didn't really have any takeaways one way or another on that duel. I saw some chatter too of like, man, Andre looks really good out there. Like, one of the two blocks that Giannis had was because Andre Jackson Jr. whiffed on that assignment and Giannis had to clean it up. But the other name to touch on, it's 3 games, but I think he's been pretty good so far. And again, it's the role that you put him in is the important thing. And that's Taurean Prince, who we saw close the Raptors game. Rightly or wrongly, Doc certainly has a lot of trust in him, but we got 31 minutes from Taurean Prince. He knows how to play off of Giannis and get his shots up, and he's still shooting the crap out of the ball through these 3 games. But if this is the role where it's just you are the bench guy, you're not our primary defender on wings. Like, we're not asking you to guard 2 guards. Ideally, we'd like you. You probably need to be a small ball 4, but if you're coming off the bench, taking on those roles and shooting, he's perfectly fine. And I think that's what we've seen through these 3 games.
You just have to market it as Taurean Prince playing in place of Kyle Kuzma, right? Then Taurean Prince minutes are going to be way more appealing to many people. Yeah, I mean, he had 3 steals and a block today, 3 out of 6, 8 points, couple threes. Again, like it's all just, especially with the second group, right? It's just on a night like this, right? Like when Taurean Prince is out there without like creators, like then obviously like it's a lot harder. And you know, like tonight, unlike the other day, right, where we saw AJ on Friday not play down the stretch, and Gary Trent Jr. hit a bunch of big shots late against his former team. You know, tonight it was AJ scores 20 points on 9 shots in 31 minutes, 4 for 5 free throws. How about that, Justin? And you know, Gary struggled, 2 for 9, minus 23, 6 points. Like, you know, and even just that last, you know, he got, I think, Brian Sampson at Bucks Filmer was pointing out that he had that early shot in the corner of in the first quarter that looked like he might have been a 3, and it was never kind of reviewed, or you know, they never changed it. They gave him a 2. And then you know, he gets fouled at the very end. They were down 4, right? So it wasn't like you know, like it was going to make us swing the difference probably, but it foot on the line ends up being a 2 rather than a 3. So just again, like this is what's going to happen. I mean, you know, we like Gary, but he's not going to give you like 18 to 20 points every night. You know, I mean, there's going to be nights where it just doesn't work. And 5 fouls tonight, like obviously he was the guy that I think defensively just seemed like a step slow, got caught with, you know, some cheap fouls. And, you know, obviously AJ was the one that played very well tonight and was the guy that was closing.
Well, I mean, that last play, I mean, if you are cognizant of your footing and it's a 3, you give yourself a much better shot because you make the first 2 and then you can tie it on the tip in versus having 1.5 seconds to have to kick it out and hit a 3. I mean, it was, and again, this is like gonna be the thing where hopefully we don't see many of these types of nights, but on nights like this, if you're gonna be down even just one of the 2 between Cole-Anthony and Kevin Porter Jr., you're going to run into problems depending on how things are structured and staggered of who's going to create looks for the other guys on the floor when Giannis isn't out there. So and Gary's one of those guys we said, I think he can create his own shot more so than a guy like AJ Green, but I still want to put him like good, classify him as that. So
you don't want to just like give Gary the ball and be like, go get us a basket,
make something for us.
It's like, you know, if he can be a guy that like late in the clock, right, if he can get, you know, off a catch, like attack a closeout, you know, get to a mid-range or stuff like that. But yeah, it's hard. I mean, you know, he's not that tall, he's not that explosive. Like, you know, he's obviously a terrific shooter, but more of a catch and shoot guy, or a catch, pump fake, one dribble, you know, shoot type guy. So so that was tough. But you know, AJ, I think obviously hit some big shots just to kind of keep the Bucks in it. You know, had that one, I forget who was on. He had that one in the corner where he was pretty well defended, and he kind of took a sidestep and pumped in like a long corner 3 when the Bucks were kind of trying to maintain touching distance. So yeah, I mean, again, like we just kind of hope those guys kind of continue to figure out. And, you know, Myles Turner didn't have a great offensive night by any stretch, but, you know, we talked about on Friday, right? He was pretty absent offensively, you know, really seemed like he was really turning down shots. Felt like tonight he had a little bit more intention to come out and get shots up. Not a great night, you know, 5 out of 12, 13 points, but did hit a couple shots in the fourth quarter, kind of when the Bucks were trying to kind of stay in the game, another couple of blocks. And again, I'll continue to ask the question. Like it feels like I want to see some Turner without Giannis, because to give him maybe a little bit more of a chance to be an offensive, not like centerpiece, but like to give them a little bit more of an option. You know,
well, just a guy too that like we've seen you score in NBA games, so like we need somebody to give us something for the next 6 minutes. Let's roll the dice and take our chances on you.
Yeah. And I think just, you know, like when he's out there with Giannis, he's going to be setting a lot of screens. He's going to move a lot, but it's going to be very perimeter oriented. Right.
Yeah.
And so without Giannis, I think you have at least a little chance to maybe have him roll more to the rim, Again, he's not like a guy that you just like run post ups and have him just try to like bang down low and get, dunks and things like that. Like, it's not really his game either, but he knows how to get to his shots, his mid-range shots. If you can run pick and rolls, have him rolling to the hoop, like, I mean, he is capable in that regard. So we'll see. Again, we saw I think Giannis and Bobby together early, and I thought, oh, maybe this means we'll see some Myles without Giannis, and don't know we saw much of any of that in this game either. So we'll see. Yeah. But I think we didn't see much of Jericho. But again, with Jericho, it's just like on a night where you're having a tough time scoring, like it's really hard to put Jericho out there without like other creators. When you had Dame Lillard, it's one thing when you got Dame and you're just looking for a guy to set screens and kind of get out of the way or roll to the rim and catch like a,
well, and even he showed a chemistry with KPJ when you would have him screening for KPJ, and they had a connection on the lob. But as we said, Ryan's on a point guard, and the rest of the group that you had out there, it's just it was clunky at best, which I think is be expected here. Yeah. As we wrap here, Frank, I was going back to what we talked about 10, 15 minutes ago and trying to figure out what was the most athletic team that they've put around Giannis here. And I mean, some of these teams, you look through them and even kind of jog in your memory thinking like, I guess it would be this team, but I don't really think of that group as all that athletic. I mean, there was like the competitive era of Giannis and then the early era of Giannis where, I mean, the answer is clearly somewhere in there before the arrival of Bud, but I mean, it's not great. What I landed on was either the 14-15 Bucks team, which that was the one that surprise made the playoffs at 500 and then lost to the Bulls in the first round. But because you had Giannis, you had Michael Carter Williams.
Yeah. NCW was athletic.
Yeah. Jared Bayless was relatively athletic. Brandon Knight.
I don't think at that point, and not so much at that point, but early in his career, he was athletic.
I'm not going to sit here and let you slander a Wildcat.
I saw Summer League Jared Bayless in 2008. That was a sight to behold. Trailblazer fans were going crazy.
Do I need to remind you of the game winner against the Bulls in that series?
Why, yeah, but I mean, athleticism is not what I was thinking of. Jared's problem was he was a 2-foot jumper. Yeah. And like every time he went
only
off
take so many jump shots.
Yeah, every time he jumped off 1 foot, it was like he was blowing a tire. It kind of felt like, and it's weird. Like I don't think he ever like had like any like major leg injuries, but it just seemed like by his late 20s, he just wasn't as kind of as explosive. But I mean, probably like I'm trying to think like the teams that had like when you had Jabari and Larry Sanders for a hot minute. Like, I don't know, did Jabari and Larry like really ever play more than like a few games like in a row together? I don't even know if they did. Basically, you have to get past the Zaza era. So that's the 14. That's why I was like 14, 15. That's still Zaza starting era. So like, that's good. But Jabari, when Jabari was healthy and dunking all the time, and I don't know. I guess he did have some overlap with Bledsoe there. Like I guess in Bledsoe's first year, Jabari came back. I want to say, I think that was when Jabari maybe was coming back from learning, and then he was coming off the bench, right? The second half of that year. So that team was had some juice athletically, but yeah, I mean, it just sort of underscores like athleticism is not everything. I'll take Chris Middleton's slow and steady game from 2018 to 2023 any day of the week. But I don't know. We'll see. But I think the question, I am very curious to see like pace wise, like right now, 3 games in, sample size, caveats.
Middle of the package.
I was looking at NBA.com. They're 10th in offense, 12th in defense. Pace, I don't think was very high at this point.
I think they were like 13th.
Yeah, so pretty average. I was meaning to look at how many 3-pointers they've attempted. Like where the 3-point here.
They were when I checked after the game, they were I think like around the same as their ranking in pace for attempts.
Yeah, let's see. 3-point attempts. They are 12th, 39 per game. So.
Yeah.
What were they? Were they at the 36 last year? Is that what they were at? Something like that?
30. I believe so. I think maybe it was 36 and a half. 36.6. Yeah.
Yeah. 38.5%. So right pretty much where they were last year.
Where they were a year ago.
Small samples, but it's still holding relatively constant.
17-18, you had Eric Bledsoe, Sterling Brown. Was
Ersan on the team?
So that's basically the baseline. Is did they have? Well, they did have Mirza Teletovic too. So like, that's the problem. Is you have like, oh yeah, they had this guy. Oh, they had. Mirza
You had Thon. Thon was.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird because like Thon had like very good athletic testing scores, and he was obviously very like quick up and down the floor, and his like blocks, but it's just his like hands were so bad that it sort of like always undercut like the sense that he was athletic,
Tyler Zeller too, that kind of anchored it a little bit. Or I was thinking too, like, well, in the like competitive era of Giannis, is it that 1920 team that was technically their most athletic that they've had? Although like that,
so that's the last Bledsoe year. That was peak Middleton. You had Dante,
peak athleticism, Pat too.
Yeah, Dante. You had Dante and Pat Connaughton.
Yeah, you did have Ersan. You did have Kyle Korver.
Korver.
You did have both Lopez twins.
You had Marvin Williams playing drop defense.
Dragon Bender too.
The Dragon, gotta love him. If only we could have hung on a Dragon Bender. What might have been.
So long story short is, this is the most athletic group that they've put around Giannis here. Anything else from this game or any thoughts upcoming for this Knicks game before we wrap here?
No, I mean, Knicks also, I think they lost tonight. Cat's been nursing this quad injury. I don't know if they have any other injuries right now, but
Mitchell Robinson didn't play this game. I don't know if it's more beyond just one game for him.
Yeah, which, with given what he does on the offensive glass, I don't think anybody would miss having to watch Mitchell Robinson. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, like a very, early measuring stick game, against the team that obviously is expected to contend for the East. So, I mean, obviously if you could, and this one's at home, right? Yeah. So
yeah, obviously
you would really like to be able to defend home court and, put in a better effort than I think, because they get swept by, I think they got swept by the Knicks.
They got swept. Right? Yeah. And that's the thing too. Like the Cavs, I mean, you didn't play well against any of the top teams, but Cleveland, you could point to the two close games that you lost early. That none of that existed with the Knicks. Like they just boat raced you from start to finish. And Mitchell, I don't think Mitchell Robinson's played at all this year because didn't he have ankle surgery going into the season?
He missed tonight's game with left ankle injury management. So
okay,
and Miles McBride was out with personal reasons. So we'll see. Towns has been playing with this quad injury, although I don't think he's been great. So this is a really interesting matchup to me, just because I thought first game last year, a lot of people might remember, like Doc put Brooke on Cat, and just like they tried to switch a couple times. They tried to have him not switch. Cat just ate them for lunch, and so that was pretty ugly. And then obviously they did different things, put Giannis on Cat at various points. Obviously Myles Turner has plenty of experience going up against Cat in the playoffs. So, this is one of those good tests, I think, of our hypothesis that Myles Turner lets you play a little more flexibly defensively and allows you to, not be quite so predictable in terms of the way you have to play defensively. So I'm assuming Cat plays. So we'll be interested to see how they manage that, to what extent we see, Giannis and Myles both playing, right? I think, we've seen when Myles and Giannis are defending, and there's like a big like screening action. Like they very liberally switch Giannis and Myles, which obviously is like an obvious thing to do. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what they do in that game. Because I guess if I'm trying to see who they start tonight. Because if
the Knicks,
if Mitchell Robinson's out, then I guess it's Pat starting at center, right? So are they starting like Josh Hart and Anunoby as the forwards? Oh, tonight it was OG Ariel Huck-Porty. Was the starting I guess the starting 4 who played 10 minutes. So the Keith Bogans
got the Keith Bogans treatment.
Yeah, but Hart's coming off the bench obviously and playing a lot of minutes. So I'm assuming kind of the closing group would be OG and OG Hart, Mikal Bridges, Brunson, and obviously Towns at center. They do have Gershon Yabusele, but he only played 16 minutes tonight. It'll be interesting to see kind of like what his what his role is, how extensively he gets run out. He's played between 12 and 16 minutes in each of the first 3 games. So he's not, it's not like he's a closer for them or something like that.
Yeah, they closed tonight with Hart. And the last time these two teams played last year, Frank, hard to believe the Knicks handled the Bucks like they did, because the Bucks starting 5 was Brook Lopez, Giannis, Kyle Kuzma, Taurean Prince, Ryan Rollins. How things have changed.
It's not small.
Yeah, it's certainly not in the conversation for most athletic group to surround Giannis with, though. So yeah, it should be at the very least, even if the Knicks are dealing with injuries, even if the Bucks still don't have all their pieces, it's at least going to be an entertaining game in terms of, let's see how the Bucks stack up against this group. And same can be said for the homestand, where you get the Warriors coming in on Thursday then. But a tough one
too. Peacock game.
Tuesday, yeah. So tough one tonight, yesterday, whenever you listen to this, though, and the loss to the Cavaliers. So we'll see if the Bucks get some of these pieces back in time for the matchup with the Knicks. For Frank, I'm Justin. We'll talk with you guys once again tomorrow on Locked On Bucks.